Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of the Articulate Fly, and we're back with another East Tennessee fishing report with Ellis Ward. Ellis, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Marv. How are you?
As always, just trying to stay out of trouble, and your weather roll continues. I looked before we started recording.
Rolling, man. It's been high and sunny every once in a while, and it's been a lot of days that have chunks of that socked in, insulated, no wind, humid, flat barometer feeling, and man, the bugs have been out. The tailwaters, the dams have been releasing, so that was a good stretch there for a little bit. Things got a little dark, but it's okay now. As I promised everyone it would be, including myself. It is okay. But yeah, now things are good. You know, I got a 21-inch brown eating little sulfur. And it was not unlike the situation that you and I were in a month or two ago, kind of up against the edge, and just this one was a little more subtle, and just it was a pretty good cast, but more regular, and it's for everyone listening, for everyone coming to me, fishing streamers. There's been now a number of guys that will make a noise or a face at the dry fly fishing, and like that's fine. It can feel less exciting than the streamer fishing, and I totally understand that to a certain extent. I think because of how much I love tying and the absolute confidence with which some of these fish on most occasions will eat a dry fly that is both the right fly and presented the right way. Like, you're seeing the mouth come up, you're watching it, you're getting that. There's a bunch of semi-nerdy casting stuff involved there. But that game is just so fun, and it's such a part of my fishing and my guiding that, for honestly, a lot of it was Helene. There was just so much sediment in the water that these bugs weren't coming up in the winter, and I mean, in the winter, I've had blanket blue wing days that we just didn't get this last year, and so I mean you ended up opening a little bit of a can of mental worms here, Marv, accidentally with just a weather question. But the Watauga has been, we've been talking about this now every podcast since October. This is the first. Like it was running 3,000 and then stepping down to 2,000 for 24 hours a day. And like, it's pretty clear. And in that big water is when I got that big fish, and there's a lot of bugs coming off. And so it was so low for so long. It was getting hot, somewhat unseasonably warm. And, there were carp in the lower river, and it just, stuff wasn't really feeling right, and that was after a long winter. So everything feels like it's right sized a bit in the last week or two. So I'm pumped. And to everyone, including yourself, who came out and slogged it out, and man, we put some big fish in the boat and got some nice eats, but we had some tough days fishing that low water. We made it happen, and it's just different opportunities now, and I haven't even talked about mousing, so it's I'm excited.
Yeah, no, it looks pretty good, and I just got another batch of dates for you, so I'll be back soon. And got a question for you from Chris, and he's he's competing with a buddy in a boat, fishing a bait caster, and he's trying to fish deep for bass. Looks like he's probably finding them on electronics. He says they're 20 to 30 feet down, but he's having a hard time consistently getting his streamer down there and presenting it and catching fish. Any suggestions?
Yeah. Size 8 Gamaris hook with 2 or 3 night crawlers affixed to it, I think, and some lead. While that would absolutely pound some fish hanging out, that is a joke. So if you're trying to get down to 20 or 30 feet, I've never done this in the lake. Most of my lake fishing is, I'm looking for bass popping on top and, fishing near the ends of the tailwaters for striper and in zones without electronics. But I've done plenty of saltwater fishing, and in that context, it's almost identical. And this is something that I learned from striper fishing in the Chesapeake, but it's all over, right? And so the same goes for lakes. You want to get down to your electronics, you're looking at 20, 30 feet. There's a lot of different lines out there that have sink rates. If you're fishing a fly that is buoyant, it's just going to take longer, but you should be able to count it down. And what that means is, let's say you have a 7-inch per second sink rate. That's just a line. So you need to count, turn that into feet and get the number of seconds down in your head roughly. And then, add 10 seconds, take 5 away. And if those fish are going and you're getting down into bait, then it's just a matter of finding where that presentation is, relative to the depth that you're looking at and how long it takes to get down there. Something else to consider. And I would say that this is especially for a, let's say it takes 20 seconds, 25 seconds to get down there. That's if you're seeing fish that aren't really hanging that long, or the bait ball's moving, or you have to be moving. Something else to consider would be, these start to become additive. So you have a really fast sinking line terminating in 7 inches per second. There's a number of different fly lines that do that. The Rio outbound short, intermediate, sink 5, sink 7. The Airflow Streamer Max long and short, I believe, terminate in 7. Scientific Anglers makes a triple density line. There's, their sonar line, and Airflow also makes the shovel head. I think Kelly Gallup has done some Cortland stuff that I'm sure terminates in a very aggressively, quickly sinking end. And then there's a few that are just, they're somewhat nightmares to cast. And, one of them being the Airflow, big game depth charge, I think it might be. And it's like the whole thing is 7 or 9 inches per second. But on top of that, if you add on, I'm going to try to make this quick, so I might end up talking quickly here. If you add on, this is going to be the wrong thing to do, but it's a good example. If you add on 50-pound fluoro straight to your fly line, and you only add a foot of it on, right, and you have something floaty or neutrally buoyant attached to it, it's just going to be floating down at the same rate as the line, or maybe even slowing it down. And what we want to do is the opposite of that. So if you can increase the distance from your sinking fly line to something with, relatively light tippet, 12-pound, 10-pound, 8-pound fluoro, and you extend that distance so that it's getting away from what we want to be a slower sinking thing, that's our fly line, then our fly, which if you're tying with, let's say, a tungsten cone head and just a couple palmers of marabou, or a 3/16 ounce jig head with a couple chunks of marabou put on it, maybe some flash, something, tungsten eyes with like a little sparsely tied Krelex with tungsten eyes. They make tungsten everything now, but with some open loop casts and 7, 8, 10-foot leader that is, relatively mass free, as opposed to, the high mass 50-pound fluoro. So what we want to avoid is that fly and the line trying to sink a lot of leader. So if you have a super sinky fly with a big distance of not a lot of mass leader, that thing's going to be sinking really, really quickly. And so combining all of this to get that, like, I want to get down as fast as possible, as quickly as possible, something sparsely tied with a material that absorbs water and moves freely. So, Krelex, Krennic flash, marabou, craft fur, and tungsten head or a jig head hook attached to attached to that 7 to 12 foot leader. You'll be getting down very quickly. And if you can't get down far enough with that setup, then you have officially encountered, you already have, the reason why fly fishing is as limited in scope as it can be, and we always want to try to find ways around it. But it's fly line is really it. You can also depart from a lot of this conversation and just do the mono rig and run a little jig head marabou something or other, and like you're going to be down there very quickly. And so I'm going to save some time because we're going to be at the limit here in a moment. But if you look up the mono rig, it's just replacing a lot of that. It's putting on 50, 60, 70 feet of mono in front of your fly line, and Euro guys, streamer fishing with that, trying to get it down. There's a lot of different applications that came out, and of course the question of whether or not it's fly fishing doesn't sound like anyone here cares. You want to pound some fish and get down to 20 or 30 feet, so that could be the answer too.
Yeah, and I would say too, the great thing about those lines is they hinge less than the older lines used to. So you go through all this pain and suffering to get the fly down. You kind of want it to stay in the zone as much as possible.
Yeah, and that's where the depth charge and some of these other scientific anglers sort of sticks out. The triple density line, and I do a lot of river fishing, and I've experimented with and used every line I can get my hands on because I always want to find the best answer that we have when we have it. And so for my application, some of those actually became I cannot have clients fishing them just because it's too much of a liability, and I'm basically giving someone something that's going to break a rod. And when I say that, I'm talking about the propensity for like the airflow depth charge and the scientific anglers triple density too. With a 30-foot cast, the running line and the back end towards the running line of the belly of that fly line is sinking so fast that that whole thing, the whole system is sinking, as opposed to just the end of it near your bug, that it'll wrap on rocks and do a bunch of other tough stuff. But those can be fantastic applications for the lake fishing, where the whole thing is sinking, and then you have an intermediate or a 1 inch per second running line that, Marv, like you said, you're if you're thinking of it like a diagram, it's going to be a straight line angled down from the boat, as opposed to a something that looks like a parabolic curve.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. You can email me or DM me on social media, whatever is easiest for you. And if we use your question, I will send you some articulate fly swag, maybe even a butcher shop sticker. We are drawing for some cool stuff from Ellis at the end of the season. And Ellis, before I let you hop, you want to let folks know how to get in touch to get on the boat, talk about fishing, bucktails, and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, best way to talk about all that stuff is my cell phone at 513-543-0019. I'm on Instagram at Ellis Ward Guides. And bucktails and flies, musky lures, information on trips, all that stuff is at elliswardflies.com.
Well, there you go. Well, folks, as I always say this time of year, you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Ellis.
Appreciate it, Marv.